putting this massive supercharged Yamaha 1.8 liter into the GPR 1200. This thing should be insanely fast, so welcome to part 3 of the GPR SHO build. I've got a lot of little details that I'm taking care of today on this, which would be really helpful if you guys are building one of these yourselves, or if you just want to see what goes into the process of a project like this. All right, here's a list of what I'm going to cover in this video. Maybe this will be helpful for you to know what's in here in case you're building this yourself. I'm going to go over the drive coupler and mid shaft. I'm going to go over the engine mounts and how it mounts into that hole. I'm going to talk about clearancing the inner hole to fit the larger engine, anything that needs to be clearanced out. I'm going to also talk about mounting up the gauges on this thing. Also going to do a quick talk about exhaust setup, and gonna talk fuel tank as well, how to get your fuel tank and electric fuel pump set up, because the 1200R is a carbureted ski, so we need to set up for electric fuel pump. And also we're going to be talking about jet pump and drive shaft setups for this. I am working on getting this motor into this GP 1200, and one of the things is, how is the engine coupler, or I mean the coupler for the drive shaft, going to line up? So on the 1200R stock, you can see that this edge is almost zero with that rear mounting bolt, so we'll call that zero. You can see that the coupler on this 1800 motor is offset to the rear here, so instead of being zeroed like right here, it's back this way a bit. And I'm gonna go measure it in the hole over there. Okay, over here in the FZR hole, I'm just kind of eyeballing this out at around 4.5 from this to like that hole there. Let's see. You can see that this coupler has basically no extension on the mid shaft, so I'm hoping that I can just grab that mid shaft, put it in here. Obviously, if I use that mid shaft, I'm gonna have to switch to the FZR drive unit, the FZR pump, which I want to do that anyway, so that I can be able to upgrade to a 160 mil at some point. But let's check out the length here. I have it's around 4.5 of extension. We should be in the ballpark. It looks like somewhere this section is around 4.5. Also, what I've just noticed is that this is an extension shaft, so I kind of think that you could take this off, remove this extension, and then put this back on right here if you were wanting to just run your 1200 pump, which is something that I may end up having to do depending on fitment and such. This is the FZR midshaft. Here is the GP 1200 midshaft. So I'm just gonna get a real idea of what the difference is here. And it is right about 4 inches is the actual real difference. So, like I was saying, I'm kind of looking for 4.5. This is where the drive shafts go in, and I believe we got 2 different sizes here. This is a smaller shaft on these. So either way, I do have to switch over to this coupler because it's a lot larger for the supercharged 4-stroke. You can see that pretty clearly there. I'm not exactly sure what route we're going here yet. I don't even know if this will bolt on there, so actually it looks like it would bolt up. It uses different bolts on that. Here's the FZR ones, here's the 1200R ones. You can see the FZR uses a longer bolt for that particular thing. man, that's not working. Check it out, that's the FCR mid shaft. It definitely can bolt on there. So yeah, the bolt pattern is the same. The dowel pins do line up, so you don't even have to really do anything other than use the FCR bolts, because this part's thicker, and then you just bolt that on there. Now I just got to kind of measure it out and make sure that the engine's gonna fit like that, if it has enough space between here and like here. And usually the motor mounts on these Jetski, Wave Runner, whatever engines, usually these mount bolts are a lot larger so that the engine can slide forward and backward. I'm not 100% on these, but I know on the older two-stroke type deals they had a lot of wiggle room. So I'm saying, like, if I'm within about ½ an inch, I should be able to just slide the motor forward on that to get it to fit. You know, I'm fairly certain that the mount points are the same, but I am gonna go ahead and measure those out real quick. But let me grab a tape, measure that out. Now I'm just gonna go from main bolt to main bolt. Maybe I should do it over here. No, that's more convoluted. Okay. This measuring tape has inches and metric on it, so it's nice and complicated for me. So it's around 52 centimeters. So that's going to be helpful for everybody. We're probably all used to doing it in inches. I'm pleased to announce that this comes in at like 52.5 centimeters, which I'm assuming I kind of measured up this one a little bit weird, you know, because it's not super easy to access, and I'm able to measure this perfectly. I'm thinking that that's the exact same footprint there, so I'm pretty pleased about that. I was fairly certain that they were the same. Trying to decide which mounts to use, these rubber mounts. I didn't remove these bolts because they were froze up in there, and I just didn't feel like dealing with it when it was in the hole. Now I could pop these off probably if I wanted to. I probably need to at least get them be able to loosen, because like I said, I might need to shift the engine forward and back just that ½ an inch of play that you get from those. So there's that. Also, one note I want to add, you gotta clear some of this out, this center section, to just clear the oil pan on this. Thank you to Adam Troy from Australia for that tip, for reminding me about that. If any of you guys else have any helpful thoughts on the swap end of this, always just let me know in the comments section. I always appreciate helpful things, you know. Even if it's something I know, it's still appreciated that, you know, you're trying to help me out. Like, I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, I already know that, blah, 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 so I'm mad about it. You think I'm stupid. No, I'm just grateful for any help that I can get. All right, I'm not sure if I've showed this yet, so let me just talk about it real quick. You saw I just pulled the bezel off. That's the gauge cluster off the FCR, and you can see I could drill this right there so it would bolt on. It would bolt on with just probably the lower bolts. The upper ones are just a bit too high to be able to bolt. But that's where it would sit. It would be kind of hanging out here in the open. So I was hoping that I could kind of trim this bezel down to still cover that when it's installed on there. Otherwise, I'm looking at, you know, cutting out this entire plastic stuff and really redoing it. And I don't really want to go that route. I don't have like a 3D plastic printer or anything. And if I went that route, you know, we'd be looking at replacing this whole piece, which doesn't excite me very much at all. I guess my other option is checking out the piece that this mounts to on the FCR and seeing if I could graft it onto here somehow, which also might be a possibility of what I'm gonna do. One other thing I want to talk about, exhaust. This diameter here on the 1300 or 1200, way bigger than on this 4-stroke one. Here's the piece that mounts in there. You can see there's no way. I'd either have to get a a conversion coupler from whatever that is, like 6 or 8 inch down to 4 inch. I'm not even sure if it's 4 inch. I haven't measured it. I'm just guesstimating. Or I can see about putting the water box from the FCR in there. Also, I'm probably going to get rid of the resonators. I'm not going to run a resonator after the water box. That's just stupid. It's silly. I gotta switch out the fuel tank, or set this fuel tank up for electric fuel pump. I could grab a $1,300 fuel tank, get it in there, and get it set up with the correct fuel pump, because the $1,300 are fuel injected, so they have a setup for electric fuel pump in them. I'm gonna see. I'm not sure if this will work, but I'm gonna check and see if I can just remove this fuel tank and just pop the FCR fuel tank in here. And reason being, I want it to be all as functional as possible. So I'm really wanting, like, all my gauges to work, and everything, and just have a real solid functional ski before we start really modding it out. Because this is going to be super fast, irregardless, but once we put some mods on this engine, this thing's gonna just fly. So, but the first thing is to get it swapped and all just really nice and sorted before we start throwing mods at it. I will say, while this motor is out, I will probably do the ribbon delete, which is in the intake manifold. I'm pretty sure the SHO has a ribbon in it. I'm not 100%, because I'm not dealing with these SHOs and SVHO engines every day. But I'm going to definitely take a look at it and see if I need to do a ribbon delete. And obviously I'll do a video on it when we get there. I'm not sure if I've talked about this yet, but I really wish that I had removed the intake manifold before I tried to pull this engine out. It would have made it a lot easier. And it looks like it's pretty easy. All the bolts for the intake would be accessible pretty easily, except for there's this one underneath, this one, and then there's that one, or you could just, undo the clamp there. But really kind of wish I would have done that. Would have made it a lot easier to get that thing out of there. I may remove that intake manifold to put it in this hole, but with it being the 1200R or the GPR, I believe it has a wider opening here, so it might just, drop right in, no problem. Here I have the fuel tank. I pulled it out of the FCR. You can see that it has this is a fuel pump assembly, and the 1200R does not have that in the fuel tank because it's carbureted, so it doesn't have electric fuel pump. I am hopeful this tank is going to fit inside here, but I'm not sure if this spout is going to work for the fill spout anymore. They did provide us with another maybe fill area here. Not sure exactly what this is. And also, I can't seem to get it off of there. So let's take a look. It's a bit larger of a diameter, but we could potentially use that as a fill if we have to. But there's still fuel in this freaking tank, probably 4 gallons or so. I'm gonna drain this sucker out. I guess let me show you the 1200R fuel tank. I have been putting stuff out of the way, as I can, so I've put the 1200R fuel tank in my attic here. So let me show you Not great lighting up here, but there's a $1,200 fuel tank. It has this, which is the fuel sender. This is how the $1,200 would get its fuel for the carbs. It has a bunch of straws that go in here. So I guess that's what that thing is on the other tank. And I think if we needed to, I could probably cut this out and set this up for the electric fuel pump to drop in this tank. I'm side by side in these two fuel tanks. $1,200. You'll recognize it by the blue tape. I have it taped off. I don't want any crap getting in there in case that gets used in a different build. I didn't realize that these are pretty much exactly the same size fuel tanks. This weird cutout here is for the oil tank on that one. Definitely could take this out and install it here. You just have to you know, cut the hole and then drill the holes for that stuff. But I'm kind of liking the idea of just putting this whole tank in there, so I really don't have to mess around with stuff too much. So I'm gonna see if that'll actually work, but I still gotta get the fuel out of this thing. It weighs way too much to be shuffling it in there. Okie dokie, I got this tank in there. It's not fully installed, I just have it mocked up. But it definitely fits. The FCR fuel tank fits. As you can see, it just pops right in there. I just want to show you the front here. I was concerned that the fill neck would hit the front here, but I see there's plenty of space. I thought that it might hit on this fiberglass area, but I see it's way up from there. I had to remove a foam piece. This was in front of the tank. Otherwise, it wouldn't have fit. I tried to put it in there and it didn't fit with that. So, that is really great because it saves me from having to, like, you know, cut this fuel tank up and all that crap. And actually, this can go into the FCR so that we could run like a carb engine in the FCR. Like, who knows what we'll put in there, but it's gonna either make a great buddy ski or a great, you know, sell it for a little bit of money and keep financing the Jetskibrothers builds. Getting ready to test fit this jet pump unit. I've got this one out of the FCR. This is the old GB1200 one. The reason I want to use this one, well, is obviously that I have the mid shaft for the FCR in there now, so it'll fit the motor. The mid shaft for the FCR, and it uses a thicker diameter. I set up for this thicker diameter drive shaft, and I measured these out before. They're the same length of drive shaft. They're both 155 millimeter housings. This one off the FCR has a larger diameter right here than this one, and from what I understand, that's better for keeping the cavitation down. So basically, it's more of like, it's a more upgraded 155 mil pump, and this way, running this, I believe I'll be able to upgrade to the 160. I'm pretty sure I can just go to 160 prop and whatchamacallit, the end housing. I think I've talked about this before. 160 prop, hold on, 160 prop, and this piece comes off. You can just do that, but also it would be nice to get the 160 stator section, which is this part right here. My phone is ringing, that was mine. But anyways, yeah, so the 160 stator section, it actually has more vanes, which is also good for keeping your cavitation down. But this old nasty prop is gonna have to get replaced at some point, so I kind of need to keep my eye on the future with that, and try to save myself from buying, 155 prop and then upgrading to 160. So I might just go to the 160 prop and extension housing, but I'm just trying to test fit this to make sure it fits as well. I wanted to remind myself to make sure about these dowel pins. So this right here, okay, this has the dowel pin in the stator section, and this one left them all behind on the ski. So if I tried to put this together right now, it wouldn't go because I'd have dowel pin in this and the other end. So I either got to pull this one out or pop the ones out of the ski. I think I'm going to take that one out. I'm just reminding myself for future smartness, because you're going to go nowhere if you have dowels on both sides. This particular dowel pin is being very cooperative. Usually they're not so easy to get out, but that one was nice and easy. I'm just going to check and make sure it's the same size over here on this one. Yeah, they're the same size, so that should go on there. Now I'm going to wire wheel clean all the old gasket crap off there, because you know, we're test fitting right now. I just want it to slip on super easy. I've run into a bit of a snag here. Let me show you what's happening. That's where the drive shaft wants to be. This is as far as the mid shaft can go on there. It's like, what am I missing? I'm obviously missing something here. So I might have to have the drive shaft cut down or something. I don't understand how this is happening when this one's the exact same length and it fits fine in its mid shaft. So I'll try to figure this out and let you know what happens. All right, here's what I'm missing. This is the 1200R mid shaft, and a thing that I wasn't considering was that they're a different style. On this 1200R one, the shaft goes like into there, like way farther in. That one not so much. So I've got to somehow come up with a solution to this problem, but I'm going to continue on with other things while I figure that out. Alright, so I'm still working out the finer details on the jet pump drive shaft setup, because there's a few different things going on. So I'm definitely going to have a video just on that when it's all done, because that's a very important part of the build. There's a few things that are going on with that, like I'm getting a spacer off of a 1300R and probably getting a different jet pump drive shaft setup from something else. But we'll cover that in a different video when I get that all squared away and I'm certain that it fits properly. Everything in this video for this is just kind of in the mock-up stage, so there could be like some little details that I'm overlooking because obviously it's not all done, it's just mocked up to see what's going on. And if I run into any other little details, I'll have those coming up in later videos on this. But one thing I definitely know for sure is there is a few more things that need to be clearanced on the inner hull in this thing. So I believe I have a video just all about doing that coming up, so we should be able to cover that no problem. Pump tunnel reinforcement, I want to talk about that. This is the older carbureted ones, so I guess if you guys don't know, the older skis are a little bit stronger in the pump tunnel area. That's this section right here. When they switched to the 1300R, for whatever reason, I don't know if they changed the design, or I think just fiberglass got thinner back here in the pump tunnel area. And a pump tunnel reinforcement is something you should definitely do on a 1300R, and it's probably not a terrible idea to do it on this one either. But I will say that the older ones, like the 1200Rs as opposed to 1300, so like 2002 and older, they are stronger than the 2003 and newer. So there's that. So if you have a 1300R and you're modding it, a lot of guys will just do the reinforcement on a modded 1300R. I just felt like I should cover that because it is kind of an important thing to know, maybe if you're building a 1300R as opposed to 1200R. Be sure to check out one of the other videos popping up in the end screen, and I'll see you guys later.